Hey Village, it's your girl Tasha Ray, the voice of Womanhood Decoded, where each episode I endeavor to explore the intersections of womanhood, motherhood, and sexuality. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today in studio at DSN, which is the Matrix Studios Network, which is located on Wall Street. So I think I said all of the which and therefores for today. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me wherever you are watching me from, whether you are watching from YouTube, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Welcome to my online community, which is a village for us. Today, the topics that we are going to be exploring are entrepreneurship, perimenopause, and womanhood. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Okay, so first of all, I just want to start out with the fact out the gate that if you are to Google perimenopause, what you will see is a statement that essentially says it is the precursor to menopause. And it makes the reader think that it's somehow a less intense or a less problematic situation. But I want you all to understand completely and fully that when I say it is perimenopause, that it is that I am navigating, I need you to understand that the level and the intensity of night sweats is turned up on high. I need you to also understand that the chemical makeup of my brain is impacting my sleep and it's impacting my libido. Now, additionally, on a previous podcast, I brought to your attention that someone who has been doing a lot of work as it pertains to bringing awareness to perimenopause and menopause and just women's health in general, and that is Halle Berry. She suggested that everyone pick up this book. And this book is called The Menopause Brain. And I'm just going to read from the back of it really quick. It says, in a society that often downplays the significance of menopause and its impact on women's lives, the author of this book serves as a rallying cry for embracing this transformative period with knowledge and empowerment. Her insights remind me of the importance of fostering a sense of community and support among women, a sentiment I hold dear in my own work. And that is from Mary Claire Harver, and she is a doctor, and she is the best-selling author of The Galveston Diet. And then I also want to turn your attention to the book sitting right next to it. And it is entitled, What Fresh Hell Is This? So, what to expect when you're not expected to expect anything anymore. So the back of this book reads as follows. Perimenopause and menopause experiences are as unique as all of us who move through them. While there is no one-size-fits-all approach, the author tells you what can happen and what to do to take care of yourself, all while bustling pernicious myths and offering real self-help tips, the kind that won't break the bank or your soul, and running the gamut from hot flashes to hormone therapy with big tent, practical, clear information, support, and inclusive for so many who have long been left outside of the discussion. People with disabilities, queer, transgender, non-binary, and other gender diverse people, BIPOC, which is me, working class, and other folks. What fresh hell is this? Is the cooling pillow an empathetic best friend to help you through the fire? Notice keyword fire, heat. Those are the topics we are talking about navigating. And I feel like it's a nuanced topic, and I don't understand, while I have provided two books for you to peruse or review on your own time, I don't understand why the body of research on this is so small. And the reason why I say this is because women make up at least 50% of the population, according to the U.S. News World Report and various other entities. And so, if we are 50% of the population, how is it that women have been matriculating through the various stages of life since the inception of time, and there has not been significant research into the change, also known as menopause, also known as perimenopause, which is supposed to be the precursor? I find that to be troubling. But I am in a mood of hope, and I'm in a mood or a place of gratitude, because I feel that while there is not enough that is being done, but there are some of us who are waist deep in this work. So I also want to draw the parallels between birth work, and that is encompassing or inclusive of doulas, midwives, and educators. And I want you all to know that there is overlap. And the reason why I say that is because when you think of a doula, you might think of doulas as something that is a luxurious experience, or only for people that have reached a particular place when it comes to tax bracket. But I want you to understand that there has been recent legislation, particularly to those of us that find themselves situated in New York City. And if you happened to be a recipient of Medicaid, I need you to know that there is a pathway to you securing a doula for little to no amount of money out of pocket. And so all you need to do is Google New York City and doulas, plus put in Medicaid if you happen to be a recipient of that. And so I want you to know that there are resources that are out there, and that are now not just relegated to those who have discretionary funds. I feel that the topics of self-care, and the topic of mental health, and the topic of women's wellness are all things that should be accessible to all and not just to some, regardless to what the incoming administration might have to say about that. Additionally, I just want to say that as it pertains to the heat factor of perimenopause, I'm not just talking about heat as it pertains to the physical bodily impact that I am experiencing. I want to draw the parallel between a couple things: puberty, perimenopause, and the pituitary gland. Notice all of these things start with the letter P. So let's start at the beginning. Puberty, everyone knows what that is, and that is a particular time of life where both genders or all genders go through. And that is where the chemical makeup in your body is shifting from what it was when you were a child to what it is or what it has become now that you are an adult. Similarly, when you are talking about what is regulating the change, that is done in the section of the brain that your pituitary gland is. And your pituitary gland has a lot to do with how various different hormones are managed, and also how your brain chemistry functions. So when you connect puberty to your pituitary gland, then you connect that to perimenopause, you will start to see some overlap. So in my brain, how it makes sense to me is I just think of perimenopause as the adult puberty, in that I am in fact going through a change. Now, while this change may not have any quote unquote outside visible symptoms, a lot of women do experience weight gain, puffiness in the face, puffiness in various other regions, appetite changes, sleep changes, libido changes. All of these things are happening, but they're happening internally for the most part. So since it's not something that you can readily see, kind of when it comes to like hidden disabilities, for example, like if someone has hearing loss, for example, that is a disability that you might not be able to recognize when you first encounter a person. However, that doesn't make that person's lived experience any more or less challenging than someone that has, let's say, a physical displaying of whatever disability. So I want to be careful, and I want to make sure that I am not saying that hearing loss is the same as, I don't know, cerebral palsy. But what I am saying is that when you are going through whatever it is that you're going through, you may have the perception that you are isolated or all by yourself, or that you are in a one of one. But what I want you to understand and know, and to hopefully find comfort in community, is that you are not alone. And oftentimes when we are going through various different things, we kind of isolate. I know that is my personality. I tend to be a person that wants to attend things, but I am a person that wants to leave things early. I am no longer the person that wants to stay there for the duration of anything at all. I just want to come, I want to network, and then I want to leave. And so it is with that hopefully I have laid out some groundwork for understanding and hopefully for empathy when you are communicating with someone that is in their 40s and or going through perimenopause. Additionally, to add some levity to the topic, I was on Instagram, and it is on my page. I believe I shared it or reshared it or reposted it, whatever term it is that's appropriate. But anyway, there was a post done by Essence magazine this week, and essentially it is an African American presenting woman who is in her 40s, and she is looking for her eyeglasses. Now, anyone that's watching will know that her glasses are actually, in fact, on top of her head. But what I want you to understand is that when a woman is going through the various different hormonal and chemical changes that are going on, what I need you to understand is that the sleep sweats or the night sweats that I mentioned just moments ago, that is interrupting the sleep that a woman such as myself is attempting to get. And so when sleep is interrupted, a couple things are happening, and none of them are positive or conducive to the highest functioning of the brain. So the comedic factor is that the woman that is looking for her eyeglasses in the skit is asking her children, where are her glasses? And she is very frustrated and very annoyed because when you share a home and or dwelling with little people, you will know that they often move things that do not belong to them, even though you have taken time to purchase things that are specifically for them. Children go out of their way to touch things that do not belong to them. So She is asking both of her children to help her and to join her in finding her glasses. Finally, the youngest child says, but they're right there. And she realizes that the glasses were on her head the entire time. What I want you to understand is, yes, it is funny, but outside of the comedic factor, it is a real thing that women such as myself are experiencing, in that we are sleep deprived, our emotions all over the map. And excuse me, we are expected to continue to show up in all the ways that we show up. And we are expected to do all of the things regardless to what it is we are navigating. In addition, and the caveat that I feel like is important to say is, even though I am in this hellish time of my life called perimenopause, I need you to understand that my cycle is still something that I am burdened with. So not only am I having hot flashes, not only am I having night sweats, not only am I experiencing mood shifts, I am also bloated. I am also managing cramps. I am also managing an increased libido, and at the same time, a very acute level of annoyance, which is not necessarily the best formula for connection and intimacy. All of this is going on at the same time. I need to let that sink in, because I think that people tend to have the illusion and or delusion that when one chapter of life is happening, that it happens and it ends and then another chapter starts. Just like in life, when you are going through whatever it is, whether it is a breakup, people tend to feel like, okay, so let's say you broke up on Wednesday. So now on Friday, you should be able to be emotionally healed and ready to move on to the next situation. Maybe, you are in the small segment of our nation where your emotions are able to shut on and off when you make a decision. But me, even though I might have come to a very logical understanding that a relationship is over, there is emotional residue and or physical connection residue. And so some people refer to that as a soul tie. I'm not going to get into spirituality because all of us are on a spectrum, I feel like, as it pertains to that. But what I will say is that even though I have logically come to the conclusion that the relationship that I was in was not serving me, my body and my lady parts are yelling at me every day to tell me, call him back. They're telling me to text him. They're telling me that whatever my problem is, he can solve it with his body parts. And I need you all to understand that it is taking maximum effort. Just like Deadpool says, listen, I'm giving maximum effort not to divert to the desires that my body is telling me that I need to do. So, I just want you all to know that your girl is navigating a lot. In addition to anemia, in addition to also being on the spectrum as it pertains to my brain. So when I tell you I'm managing a lot, hopefully that gives you some perspective. So I would like to transition in my podcast because today I am talking about perimenopause, which I just covered, womanhood, and entrepreneurship. So I want to switch gears and transition to womanhood / entrepreneurship. So I want to start with bringing your attention to two things. Right here. Let's see if we can have this to stand up. Oh, look at that. Got it to stand up. So this is my brand called Womb Literacy, and I launched it this summer regarding my line of feminine wellness products. And so, what I want to talk to you all about is this is my Yoni Steam, and various practitioners have been utilizing this particular healing modality for thousands of years. And I came across the concept a couple different ways. One was reading Sacred Woman by Queen Afua. Another was when I attended women's wellness conference, and another was when I was completing my education as it pertained to getting my certification in women's wellness and or the fertility awareness method. And I can get into the nuances of that at another time. But the reason why I am bringing up womb literacy is to show you the behind the scenes struggle that oftentimes entrepreneurs don't highlight. So, with that being said, I am going to take a small break, and when I come back, there will be a guest sitting next to me. So again, my name is Tasha Ray, and I am the host of Womanhood Decoded, and I will be right back. Hey Village, welcome back to segment 2 of Womanhood Decoded, where each episode I hope to explore the intersections of womanhood, motherhood, and sexuality. So, with me today in studio is a special guest, and I am so excited to have her sitting next to me. She has braved the temperatures and New York traffic and all of that during rush hour. So, I am super happy to have with me today
Jaquetta Robinson.
Thank you so much for joining me. So, the streets say you are an entrepreneur. Obviously, you are a woman. And could you tell me about your company, what it is entitled, and how long you have been in business?
So the name of my business is Pretty in Pink Brow and Beauty Bar. We've been in a business now, I want to say really full gas pedal, almost 3 years. Mm-hmm. So what I do is mainly the focus is on restoring confidence in women. You know, it's a lot of different challenges that we face in life that we lose ourselves, taking care of ourselves as moms and partners and employees. So that's one of the things that I wanted to be able to do, and I do that by creating these gorgeous brows for women so that they can wake up, brows already done, don't have to use a pencil. It also is to help women who have lost their brow hairs due to medical ailments, chemotherapy, radiation, alopecia. And then I also offer areola reconstruction. So women who have had mastectomies, they're already dealing with a lot. But then when they come to me, I am able to reconstruct their areola so that it looks like, it gives the illusion as if there is a nipple there. And then I also offer scalp micropigmentation. So for men and women, if they have lost their hair or their edges or their hair is thinning out, we do a procedure that gives the illusion to make the hair look fuller.
Wow. That is a lot, and all of those are things that if you are just now joining me, you know that in the first segment we were talking particularly or specifically about menopause, and we were talking about the book Menopause Brain. Mm-hmm. And this is a book that was recommended by Halle Berry, who I was telling my audience has been doing a lot of work in the space of menopause and advocating for women being whole humans. So instead of feeling like we need to forever be 30 or feeling like we need to forever be a size 2, 6, or one of those numbers that might be very difficult to attain, or some of us never attained it. The thing that I love about Halle is she's always doing random things that you wouldn't expect. And so when I started researching my symptoms and I was looking for a community, I kept coming across Halle's name, and I was just like, what? So I found out that she has been working particularly with lawmakers to advocate for the allocation of funding for women's health, and particularly research in menopause, because if you didn't know, but I'm sure you probably do, they have been researching a whole lot and putting a lot of dollars into solving erectile dysfunction. So you will know that there is Viagra, there is Cialis, and there's also Hims. So there is an exhaustive amount of research and funding that has been focused on figuring out how a man can continue to do what he likes to do in intimate settings. However, women, I shared with the audience, we make up at least 50% of the U.S. population. And somehow, there has been very little research done in the space of menopause. And I find that to be problematic. And so I am just inspired to know that there are other women that are going through this very same period of transition. And as I was explaining to the audience, there are 3 P's. So we already know about the pituitary gland and how that is connected to puberty. And now we are navigating perimenopause. And that also is connected to our pituitary gland. And essentially, what I was explaining and laying out to the audience is that it is puberty, but on steroids. And instead of us having the physical changes that might be apparent that come along with puberty, as you mentioned, there are things that are able to be seen, whether it is hair loss or whether it's pigmentation changes. I am navigating night sweats and mood swings and an increased libido. All of these are things that are not new to me, or they are new to me, but they are things that nobody told me to brace myself for. There was no listen here, sit down. I was getting lessons on how I need to get married and how I need to check certain boxes off as it pertains to my womanhood. But somehow, even though women have been going through the things that you and I are speaking about since the history of time started, there seems to be not enough emphasis put on that. So what I want to know is, when it comes to the creation and the formation of your company, you said about 3 years putting the pedal to the ground. I want to know, what is it that you were experiencing and or seeing in your life that you thought, let me provide a solution? Because I feel that most companies come from a place of you're looking for help and you're not finding it, and or someone in your family or in your circle is looking for it.
Excuse me. So in addition to owning the brow business, I am also a cardiopulmonary practitioner. So that's what I do 3 days a week. That's I do that full time, and then I have the business. Being in the healthcare setting, and being able to see visually different things that women struggle with. And I guess getting into healthcare, I always knew my vision and purpose is to help people. I just didn't know where to find it. Then I got into healthcare, and then starting to see some of the things that the women go through, specifically related to different medications and things like that from, as we get older, and they say, heart disease is the #1 killer in women, not black women, not white women, not Asian women, period. So starting to see different changes in the cardiopulmonary setting and the medications that they were taking and how it was affecting them and how it physically and internally affects our bodies, I wanted to do something to help them. And I was like, okay, what could I do? So I began with the areola reconstruction first. It takes a lot of confidence away from women when we start going through these changes in our body. And even though these are parts of our body that people can't see on a regular basis, it still affects our confidence. And I was like, no, I want to help these women. And I dealt with the issue with my brows personally. I had started, I was going through what I just thought was thinning edges, but it was thinning everywhere. And it was hormonal changes. And I was like, you know what? I want to get my brows done and see if this helps me and gives me a little more confidence. And then after I did that for myself, I said, okay, we're going to do this. For every woman that I encounter, somehow, some way, I want to do something to change their life. And that's when Pretty in Pink was born.
I love it.
Thank you.
Love that. And I want to segue into, before we were going to break, I was talking about my company, Womb Literacy, and how the origin of womb literacy was, well, I was dealing with a lot of problems in my womb. And I found when I was doing research that there is so much left out. When I was in school, for example, I was under the understanding that I could get pregnant at any time, and that essentially my fertility was like a time bomb that I was walking around with that could, like I said, it was like a hair trigger that any single time I decided to be intimate, I can get pregnant. It wasn't until I started studying the female reproductive system that I understood that there is a particular time, and it's a small window in comparison to the rest of the month.
Yes.
And when I found out that I had a fertile window, and that I could only carry one child per calendar year, unless I happen to be one of the women that gets pregnant with multiples. But the point is that I have one egg that can turn into multiple offspring, but that one egg is being bombarded with a plethora of sperm.
Yes.
So in my mind, I just found it difficult to really sort of kind of wrap my mind around how we are doing all this work to stop this one egg when men have an abundance of sperm. They make sperm every time they wake up. They are generating more sperm, and I don't know if the audience knows, but whatever amount of eggs that you had when you came to this world or you were birthed are the same amount of eggs that you have now, and that have only started to decrease with time. So we are not perpetually making eggs, and that is the reason why our fertility is something that declines or should be looked at from maybe a different perspective. Now, I am not saying that I want you to be afraid about your eggs sitting there spoiling, so to speak, but I do feel that if you know this information, you can better prepare yourself moving forward in your life. Because for me, I was just figuring that I would meet someone along the way as I was climbing the proverbial ladder as it pertained to my profession, that I would meet somebody, get married, have children, and live life. Well, that didn't happen, and found myself at 37 and still unmarried and still without a plan as to the marriage aspect, because in my mind I didn't want to be a statistic. And being that I was the first to graduate in my family on my dad's side, the next momentous occasion, I didn't want to be me being pregnant outside of marriage. Well, that's what happened to me. And I had to go through a lot to get pregnant and to be able to have my daughter, because of all the stuff that was going on in my womb, which was connected to birth control, which is something that I was given at a very early age to manage what was going on in my body. And so what I want also the audience to know is that when it comes to your womb and or your cycle, your period is your fifth vital sign. So whenever you go to an emergency setting, you will get your vitals taken. And what you will understand is that there are particular numbers that are considered to be in the norm. Then there are other numbers that are when you're outside of that norm. In addition to that, you are asked, how do you feel? Or to talk about your pain on a scale of 1 to 10. And so I also want to bring to the attention of the viewing audience that typically when a black woman says that my pain is a 10, it's not taken with the same, or it's not weighed the same as when a woman says that her level of pain is a 10 and she is white. What I have witnessed as a journalist is that women that are not black are believed and they are immediately given a pathway to getting to the bottom of their pain and managing it. Whereas Black women, we are often told, well, you can just breathe through it, and or you can manage it some sort of way outside of the same directives that are given to other women. So you working in healthcare, I want to know, is that something that you have also seen?
Absolutely. Often, actually. So I often cover the emergency room under certain situations, and I have seen it firsthand.
Okay.
That is, people think, no, that does not happen in healthcare. It doesn't. No, it is an absolute fact. They do not take it as serious when it is an African American woman saying that she has a high level of pain. They don't. They immediately think that we are seeking drugs, or that we are just over exacerbating what the pain is, and they do not take us seriously. And immediate, like you said, are white, Caucasian, no problem, they're all over it.
Yes. And so in another episode, I was talking about Black mental health. And the reason why I feel like this has to do with all of this is because no matter what it is that we're talking about, I feel like all of our systems are interconnected. So whether we are talking about our reproductive health, which is connected to our circulatory health, which is connected to our respiratory health, all of it is connected. So one second. Yes, one for us both. So, yes, and so I want to say that all of the systems are connected, but for whatever reason, in Western medicine, we. Okay, so like I was saying, so when it comes to Western medicine, it seems from my experience that we try to, if you have, for example, hypertension, then they might look at your circulatory health or your circulatory system. But as I was just saying, everything is connected. So what I like about going to my holistic practitioner, which was not something I even knew that I could get, but when I was getting acupuncture, which tells you that my mind is probably a little bit outside of the box. Anyway, she told me that I might want to get a nutritionist. And I'm like, okay, what's that got to do with anything? And she was just like, well, what you eat directly impacts your overall health, and it's going to impact your hormones. And I said, oh, okay. And she was like, so your holistic care practitioner is going to be able to look at your numbers a little bit differently than your OBGYN. And I was like, oh, okay. But how this connects to mental health is I am of the belief that mental health is looked at as the same as physical health when you are not Black.
Oh, wow.
And I want to know, do you think, or have you seen the same thing?
Absolutely, 100%. When it's mental health, they immediately feel like it can't be, it's not a mental health issue, it's their environment, it's, how they grew up or where they were raised, in poverty, they immediately look at that and they think, that's just their upbringing. Complete difference when they come in, excuse me, and you see the difference in the Caucasian patients come in, mental health, quick evaluation, quick. Excuse me, African American, it's 6 months, 7 month waiting list before you can see a psychiatrist or a psychologist.
Which is problematic because I feel like we have already been conditioned as Black people and people of color to sweep our issues under the rug. And all of us, I'm sure, have had a family member in your life where you are basically told, okay, well, they a little bit off when it comes to family gatherings. Absolutely. So you may want to stay away from so and forth. But now that I have gotten to this particular point in my life, I realize that that person in my family needed mental health support. And they were basically just being isolated in somebody's house, as opposed to be, given resources or tools or a pathway to be able to, join regular society. It's like, all of a sudden, we just put a band-aid of silence over the situation as opposed to actually dealing with it. And so what I want to say is depression and diabetes affect two different regions of a person's humanity, but both of them need to have the same level of attention when it comes to how the level of urgency is. So what I want women to understand, particularly women of color, is that when you are experiencing something and you go to either your emergency or urgent care or your whatever your health practitioner is, if you feel like you are not being heard, I want you to begin to advocate for yourself.
Yes.
Because I need you to have your voice be heard, and if you feel like it's not being heard, then go somewhere where it will be heard, because we are dying in unprecedented rates, and that's something that is not being covered in mainstream news, and that is something that I want to bring our attention to, particularly when it comes to Black birthing people. Now in New York, you would think that our statistics would be a beacon of hope, or would be a beacon of medical advancement, but for somehow in New York, we have some of the highest rates in our nation when it comes to infant death. Help me say the word.
Mortality.
Yes, and the passing of Black mothers. And that is because, again, when we are told as Black women, we're not being listened to. And I just want everyone to know that when you have womb literacy, which is when you understand what's going on in your body, you can understand that your fifth vital sign, which is your cycle, when there's something wrong with it, it's an alarm system. But what hormonal birth control does is it turns off the theoretical alarm. So you may not be having the excessive cramps or the excessive bleeding or whatever the problem is, it is going to be covered by the birth control. But should you change birth control or stop birth control because, let's say, you decide you would like to start planning your family, what you will realize is that whatever your problem was before you started taking hormonal birth control, it will then start, and it will sometimes feel like it is there with a vengeance. Additionally, I wanted you to comment on the fact that you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. Every other medication on the market is prescribed according to your weight and your height.
Correct.
But when it comes to hormonal birth control, somehow it's one size fits all.
It's one size fits all. Correct. It shouldn't be. It should be tailored to each individual person, height, weight, BMI. That is actually something that the pharmaceutical companies are trying to change. But if they do that, if they make that change, it affects their pockets, because it's so easy to just dish and shell out the birth control to anybody. So rather than have to tailor it specifically to a patient, now you have to start calculating all these numbers, and breaks down, this person might not be suitable, this person may not be suitable, versus let's just give it to everybody. There we go.
And then we should know that there is something different about this, in that even when it comes to Plan B, it says it on the box that if you are over a certain number regarding your weight, that it may or may not work for you. And that in and of itself should be an alert, because again, if I am 5'3" on a good day, depending on my shoes, but the point is that myself and a woman that could be on the WNBA, which would mean a woman that is 5'9" and above, we are given the same dosage. What this means is that my body is going to metabolize it differently, because I am in a smaller frame than a woman that is 5'9" and above. And so what I found myself with in my early 30s is that I had a toxic level of progesterone and estrogen. And so when I went to the doctor, because I had passed out at work, I was immediately looked at as the problem. They started asking me all these questions, essentially making it seem as if I was abusing birth control. They were like, so can you explain to me how much birth control are you taking on a daily basis? And, I'm going to get to the end of this story quickly, and I'm going to basically say that I said, well, I'm not even taking oral birth control. I am on the patch. So it is administering the birth control for me. And so there's no user error. I keep it on for 3 weeks, and then I take it off, and then I have a bleeding. But what that bleeding is, it's not the same as your period, and that's, for another episode. But the long story short is, somehow, because I started hormonal birth control directly in accordance to when puberty started for me, because I wanted to continue to do the things that I wanted to do, and my period was a barrier to that, because I was diagnosed with menorrhagia, which essentially says that I have long periods and awful periods regarding pain. So they put me on hormonal birth control at 14. So from 14 to 30 something, I was on some form, whether it was pill, whether it was Depo, whether it was the ring. They kept switching me to different ones. And what I need the audience to know is, I started to get all of this pain in my breast region, and I was like, what is going on? And I had all of these lumps. Well, come to find out, the progesterone and estrogen in the birth control was in my body creating lumps. Or tissue was starting to accumulate in my breast, and being that my family, breast cancer runs in my family, it was making that situation worse. But had I not gone to the hospital, had I never passed out, I would have never known that I had a toxic level of birth control in my body, and I would have never started my journey into understanding my body, which is why I founded Womb Literacy. So it was a long story to get there, but basically what I want everyone to understand is, that's why I started my other company, A Village for Us, because I feel everyone has heard the saying, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes, it does.
But I also feel that it takes a village to support a woman in village, a woman in business, because you need an accountant, you need legal advice, you need there's financial advice and understanding, how to start an LLC, or how to, set up payroll and accounting and your taxes. It's all these things. So it's like, when you start and you get a vision about something, and then you actually do it, there's a lot of different barriers and challenges. And so, when it comes to financial literacy, for example, if you grew up, depending on where you grew up, it might be a part of your everyday conversation about understand Roth IRAs. It might, or about how to start an investment portfolio. But in other homes, you might be hearing about the allocation of food stamps, or you might be understanding how to get or become a recipient of Section 8, or how to make sure that your WIC benefits don't get cut off.
Correct.
So what I'm saying is, we are talking about money, but we are talking about it in a completely different way. And it is putting us at a disadvantage.
Absolutely.
And so the only way to overcome the disadvantage is to, one, utilize resources that we usually don't even have time to do. For example, the library, it's a free resource, but because we are working and doing all the things, and we have decided to become in business with ourselves, or in business for ourselves, because we understand that the way the economy is set up, a job will never allow space for you to become wealthy.
No, it will not.
All a job will do is monopolize your time, so that you are there for X amount of time, X amount of hours, and then you get X amount of dollars back. And so when you look at the cost of living, and then you compare that to whatever it is that you're making, what you will notice is that the cost of living continues to rise exponentially in comparison to the monies it is that you're being made.
Correct.
So all of this is a problem.
Yes.
And so there are things like the Chamber of Commerce, or the Entrepreneurista League, or Luminary, for example. These are memberships that I have joined that have enabled me to understand my money differently. And so basically, just like every game, or every system, whether you're talking about education and how to navigate it as it pertains to, getting scholarships or getting into certain Ivy League schools, all of it is a system. When it comes to finances, that's a system. And when you understand the system, you know what you can do? You can break or bend the rules,
right,
or navigate and get
Mm-hmm.
to a different destination. So I feel like in our generation, that's why my whole podcast is called Womanhood Decoded, because I want to know from your perspective. What I found in my lived experience is that my mom was born in the 50s. I was born in the very early 80s, which makes me a 40s.
I'm a 40s. I'm in
somebody.
there. I'm in there.
So the thing about your 40s is what I noticed is women, we are defining womanhood differently than our mothers.
Yes.
Prior to now, a woman, the cake of life was to become a wife, to become a mother, and then to do something either in the church and or the community. Now, in our generation, it's not that relationships don't have the same or a similar significance, but my mama told me that I needed to be twice as good, and I needed to become educated, and I needed to be able to provide for myself, because there was probably not going to be a man that was going to be able to provide for me on the same level that my father and my mother were able to provide through their sacrifice. So therefore, I did all of those things. So I want to know, in your lived experience, did you see a shift in how womanhood is viewed in your home?
Absolutely. The way I grew up with my mom, my grandmother, my aunts, the same exact thing. Stay home, have children, and the same thing, be involved either in your church or the community or the children's school. But I knew that my mother didn't have to tell me to go for more, because I knew that I wanted more. So I decided when I went to college, I said, nope, we're gonna do this different. Sometimes they say, women can be too strong-minded, or a man can't handle her, it's too much. But we've just raised to be strong women, and I wanted that education. I wanted to get out and also do things in the community, but I also wanted to work. I wanted to have a career. I wanted to own my own business. I wanted to teach my children that as well. Totally different. And my mother says it all the time. She's like, they would have looked at me like the rebel if I was, born when she was born. And, in the 50s or 60s, like, oh my God, women don't do that. But this is what we're doing. We're doing it really great.
I think so. I think so. But, there has been a lot going on Beyonce's internet.
Yes.
As, for example, Tracy Ellis Ross, Ava DuVernay. I can continue to make a list, but Oprah's on that list. And essentially, successful Black women, it's like our success doesn't matter if it's not connected to motherhood and or if it's not connected to the title of wife.
Yes.
And I just feel like this is a discussion that needs to be had. And when it came to any of the other changes that happened in our society, whether it is civil rights, the movement, or whether it's women's suffrage or any of those things, feminism, it took generations to get momentum. But somehow in our generation, it was almost like it was a light switch, turn on, turn off, in that, everybody did everything one way, and then suddenly we got up and we were like, no,
we're going to do it a different way.
We're going to do it a different way.
That's right.
But I also want to say that I do not believe that all women and men are at war with one another. I do feel that while I'm not married, I do believe in the institution of marriage. Additionally, do I want to get married? As I said, it's not something that I feel eager to do, to take on the responsibility of curating someone else's peace when my peace may not even be considered. I'm not really sure if that's something that I want to prioritize right now, given that I am a mother and I'm also birthing companies. So taking on the added burden without the added benefit, because somehow men are able to become husbands, but they are able to continue their pursuit of their dreams, whereas women, when we get married, we are supposed to set aside our dreams so that we can uplift, support a man and his dreams. And we are supposed to become fully enveloped in the lives of our children and community and or church. And I'm not saying any of that is wrong or bad, but what I am saying is that I'm not a monolith. And I'm not just one thing. And just because I became a mom later in life doesn't mean that I'm no longer a woman.
A woman, that's right. We're a woman first before we're anything. Before we were anybody's mother, before we're anybody's wife, we are women first.
Ooh, this has been a juicy conversation. And what I want the audience to know is, how can they find you online?
You can find me on Instagram, Pretty in Pink Brows on my Instagram. My website is prettyinpink with 2 Ks .as.me. But if you go to my Instagram, you'll be able to find all my information. My link tree bio is on that Instagram page.
Amazing. Thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for holding space. I feel that this whole idea that we as Black women are always in competition with one another and that we are always looking to step on one another's necks, I don't feel like the crab mentality is something that we have adopted.
No.
I think that in certain spaces, it is a particular way that is perpetuated, but I feel like in moments like this, I am able to feel a sense of peace and calm knowing that I was able to share space with a Black woman and who has maybe a different perspective, but has a whole lot of levels of, I think, overlap.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. So again, this has been another episode of Womanhood Decoded. Please like, share, subscribe, and if you are in the giving spirit, leave a 2-sentence comment on YouTube. And all you got to do is type in Womanhood and Decoded, and then put in Tasha Ray, and any of the videos that you see from season 2 will all be there readily available. And thank you for joining me, and hopefully you will join me right again this week on Friday for Red Lipstick Conversations, where I have a great show planned. Again, happy holidays, and be kind to yourself. Breathe in, breathe out, and whoosa.
Oh my God, my asthma went.